If I've done it thousands of times over the last 3 decades, chances are I've probably figure out what works and doesn't work. And one of the things that I know for a fact that doesn't work are diets. All right, welcome back to another episode of the Brave Today podcast. This show is going to encourage, challenge, maybe even provoke you to step outside your comfort zone and take more action to better improve yourself and your health. I'm your host, Mark Avens, in this crazy upside down world that keeps pushing a narrative for you and me to become softer and weaker and sicker and unhealthier and more dependent than ever. The goal and intent of this show is to help you navigate it so that you can not become just braver, but braver today than you were yesterday. And that's what it's all about. Listen, in this show, in this podcast, we have different types of shows. We do brave guest interviews, and that's where I basically interview clients, coaches, mentors, friends, family members who are brave and are not only brave, people I admire who are also helping other people to become brave in this world that we live in. Having courage and being brave is something that we need more of now than ever. We also have what's called Brave Q&A, and that's where I answer questions that you have. If you have a question, the easiest way to do it is to send it at info, at avensfitness.com. And then also, if you're on social, you can send me questions through there as well, if it's on Facebook or Instagram or anywhere. But the best way to get your questions to me so that I can maybe answer those on the show, just send an email. You can also, if you're watching YouTube, drop in the comments if you have a question, and we'll feature your question on one of the next shows. We also have Flavor of the Day. It's I discuss latest news, health, and fitness, picking apart latest diet trends, workouts, fads, pills, potions. There's about 1,000,000,001 different options, and there's more and more into the marketplace. And then also do what's called breakthrough episodes where I dive deeper into an area, be it physical, mental, emotional, spiritual, and basically any area that could be holding you back. And there are areas that are holding you back. There's areas that hold me back. The best way to actually take charge of those and to have a breakthrough or to actually learn, to not just get the knowledge, but apply that knowledge into practical use, take action, and to better improve yourself. And I have actually a special treat for you today. We're going to be talking about diets here briefly, but I'm kind of excited. It's going to be a fun one. So I hope you're ready. This is going to be a little bit of a treat. Maybe you'll learn something new. It actually came up in a conversation that I had the other day. Now, it was somebody that I was connecting with. This is all online. And we had touched base maybe a year or two. This woman particularly had been struggling with her weight and used to be in really good shape. She even kind of did a little bit. We had like a little mini program we did. And to be honest, she didn't really fully take full advantage of that. And then it happens, right? There's one thing about signing up for a program or a coach or a gym, but if you don't actually do the program or go to the gym or actually, listen to what's being told and doing it and applying, then you're not going to get results, right? I've been doing this so long that I guarantee if you are a good fit for our program that you will get results. It's actually 100% guaranteed. I don't know any other coach or trainer that does that. I can, because we haven't had somebody that's actually fully taken on the coaching that we do and offer in our program. I mean, if I've done it thousands of times over the last 3 decades, chances are I've probably figure out what works and doesn't work. And one of the things that I know for a fact that doesn't work are diets. Diet trends. It's so crazy because over the years, there's been so many like absurd diets. And the one right now that, is capturing everybody's attention isn't necessarily a diet, but it is actually a medical weight loss alternative. And that's what this person said. Oh, I had to go extreme. I've never do medication. Nothing's worked for me. And I know you're against it. And she must have, been following me. And I'm completely against it. If you want to know where I stand on the medical weight loss alternatives, such as Ozempic, and that's the trendiest one, I guess, the first one that came out on the market, that's going to be over a $200 billion business over the years. It's not about getting you healthy. It's not about getting the weight off. Let me just make sure that you understand where I stand on that right up front. So you can go and say, well, my doctor told me that it's going to be good for me and it's going to be the thing that I need to take the weight off. Your doctor is getting paid by the pharmaceutical companies. I'm not. And I'm here to tell you, well, you're like, well, maybe if you were, you'd be talking about it. No, I'm not going to bend over to them. So honestly, what you need to realize is that diet companies, even coaches and trainers, I'll be honest, there's some that are just out there to take you and rob you of your money. They're not there truly to help. There are good coaches, and just as there are good doctors out there, but unfortunately, a lot of times what gets in the way of you getting the best and what you need is dollars and cents. So I hope you have some sense to listen to me as we talk about this, and we're just going to have some fun. But this conversation just ended where she said, well, I'm going to be doing this. And, what I understand and what I've learned and the research that I've done, even people that I've talked to, this like miracle drug, if you will, it's meant for diabetes, is not something that people realize the repercussions. Of course, all medications, which again, people still take medications and they say, whatever my doctor tells me I'm going to do. And you're blindly going into it, not knowing what's in it, kind of like what happened over the last couple of years. And I'm not going to go down that rabbit trail, but you got to realize that there is stuff that you're putting into your body, into your system, right? And she shared, well, this is extreme and it's going to be just as bad side effects that this caused. And my wife being a GI specialist, she worked at Mayo Clinic for a number of years back when we were in Florida. And she saw lots and lots of problems and issues from people that were doing medical weight loss, right? And just as she saw a lot of people that had weight loss surgery, right? You don't hear people talking about weight loss surgery anymore. Why? Because it wasn't a solution. And we're not here to get into all those. And I guess that's not technically diet. It stirred me up being in this for literally, I've been on this earth for 51 years. 30 of those years I've actually spent in the trenches working side by side with people in their weight loss and fitness journey. So I've seen plenty of diets. I've been around plenty of people that have tried all the things, right? And I can tell you that not only is it worse now, because all those things that you've probably heard about still exist to some extent, maybe not some that are like over 100 years ago, but a lot of them still exist. And guess what? This is the simple thing to just kind of reveal to you if any of those methods worked over the last 100 years. Do you think that we would still have, at least in the United States here and in the world, do you think we'd actually still have the weight loss epidemic that we have now currently? There's more people overweight, out of shape, unhealthy, that have bad immune systems. They're sicker, they're unhealthier, they're weaker, they're more tired, they're more depressed than ever before. And I could go out on a limb and I don't mind. There could be some haters. So you don't understand. I lost 50 pounds on Ozempic. Right. But you realize that you have to be on that the rest of your life. What's really crazy, it's like completely out in the open. The weight loss now, what's happening now today, everybody's jumping on the bandwagon of getting this medicine they take once a week, right? And you're getting injected and it's hard to find now and it's expensive if it doesn't cover your insurance. Well, of course, insurance is going to cover it, because they're getting paid off by the drug companies and the drug companies got to get paid somehow, right? So just think about that. You just wonder how all these drug companies can afford all the commercials that they, and the millions and millions and millions of dollars, because they're making billions and billions and billions of dollars off of the medicine. So I've done a whole podcast, go back. I don't know what episode that was. If I was planning ahead, I probably would have got that, but go back to my Ozempic episode. I actually shared a couple of things on that. I think I did a 2-part series on that. Go back and check that out. It got me more upset, not at the person, because, you're sold into believing whatever anybody tells you, doctors specifically. I had a client that I've been working with coaching for a little while now, and she's doing better. She's developing better habits, starting to say no to the things that are not serving her, starting to lose some weight. And her doctor's still trying to push this medicine. The doctor has said, I used it and I'm on it. And she said, well, how long am I going to be on it for? Well, it's something you just take forever, because it is something that's going to prevent you from overeating. It's just crazy. So as good as it sounds, do your due diligence, go back and look. If you have questions, I'd love to hear your feedback. Go ahead. I'd love to challenge you. If you've had 30 years experience and any of these diets that we talk about actually really worked for you as a solution, not just to get weight off for spring break or fit in that wedding dress, then come talk to me. We'll have an open conversation. But let's get into it. I want to go over some of the most popular diet trends over the last 100 years. Right now, I haven't been around for 100 years, but I did some research and I looked it up. Actually, Business Insider was great. They actually did a nice article and I did a little bit more research. And some of them like, oh, I remember when that was out. Oh, I remember when I had a client doing that. Oh, I remember this. And it was really nostalgic, to say the least, but it is kind of funny how things have evolved so much, but at the same time that we're in far worse shape now than we were 50 years ago. If you go to any kind of public place, go to the grocery store, go to a concert, go to, a mall, if there's any malls left in the world, go anywhere where there's a lot of people, go to the beach 50 years ago. And then now you will significantly see the difference between what the average human being looks like, men, women, and children, right? So in that, let's go back. Back in like the early days, like back 100 years ago, there was some kind of like crazy things. One of the first things, and it was actually called Fletcherism. So back in the 1900s, Fletcherism was the 1900s version of juicing. And that was this guy, Horace Fletcher, encouraged people to chew their food until it turned to a liquid before swallowing. According to U.S. National Library of Medicine, Fletcher believed this method precluded overeating. And to some extent, that's something that if you were to slowly eat your food, look, the bottom line is a lot of people just eat too much because they eat too fast and their body hasn't time. So that was like kind of just the start of more mindful eating, slower eating, more mindful and so forth. But there really wasn't any evidence to actually prove this. Back in like the early 1900s, this was interesting. And again, this is something I learned. I didn't really hear too much people because in the 20s, I didn't know too many people that lived in the 20s. 1928, Wilhelm Stephenson tried to push people to eat like you were in the Arctics. So the Arctic diet, which was interesting, it was a high fat diet, right? In the tundra, if you will. And then they had like the holiday diet. It actually caused more of a high amounts of fat and not worrying about suffering from any kind of risks like cholesterol, triglyceride levels, which is also something you might want to do a little deeper dive into. We're not going to do that today. So I was like in the early 1900s. This is interesting. I found this one kind of close to home too, because I do hear this often from a lot of my Christian audience of people that follow me and they know I do love Jesus. I do believe in prayer. But one of the things in the early 50s, people were encouraged to pray their weight off in the 50s. There was a Reverend Charlie Shedd. He published this book. It was called Pray Your Weight Away. He had this crazy, I think it was over 100-pound weight loss journey. And he attributed his success to the self-discipline through power of prayer. I hear this all the time. I'm just going to give my weight over to the Lord. I know he loves me no matter how much I weigh. And that is true. You can surrender all things over to the Lord. I do believe it comes back to faith without works is dead. I do believe it's great to have faith. And I do believe prayer can help. Maybe praying for a breakthrough, maybe praying to get somebody around you can encourage you, maybe praying to have some of that discipline. I think that's absolutely a great way. But I think a lot of times, and as Christians, and I know for a fact, because I've been around plenty of them over the years, and just not knocking it, like we're some of our own worst critics. But you can't just pray the weight off, right? What you can do is pray for better habits. Those are great things. But the weight's not just going, you're going to pray one night and wake up the next day and you're going to have a miracle breakthrough 100 pounds. Hey, God can do anything. I believe that. But it is interesting that this was something in the early 50s. Now, this one might actually surprise you. Have you heard? This is in the 60s. So maybe if you're a little bit older, or maybe you heard from your parents talk about this diet. It's called the Sleeping Beauty diet. You know what it is. The Sleeping Beauty diet kind of makes me think of like intermittent fasting, but instead of like just not eating, you're just sleeping most of your day. So let's just sleep your life away so you don't overeat. The Sleeping Beauty diet of the 60s, it actually resurfaced not too long ago. Actually, I heard about that. And you basically, when you get a good night's sleep, you're not eating when you're sleeping. I don't know if there's any sleep eaters out there. I haven't met any before. But basically just talking about encouraging the use of sedatives so that you sleep for up to 20 hours. I don't know. I got a job, like you got a life, you got like things going to keep going. I don't know if you can work and sleep. Some people I've heard, sleep through work. Again, it was just so that you don't eat. And it's kind of like what intermittent fasting is. You have like a small window. For me, I don't see any kind of value in 20 hours not even being awake. Like you're only up for 4 hours and you sleep for the rest. Crazy. But that was something that was pushed in the 60s. Sleeping Beauty diet was first mentioned in the Valley of the Dolls, which is interesting. So back in the 60s, the other thing that is something that stood the test of time and they were so keen, and this one really rubbed me in such a bad way because of what I've seen happen to so many people that have fallen down the trap of the infamous, world famous, founded in 1963, dun, 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 Weight Watchers, the new Weight Watchers, WW now, right? And, all these celebrities and people like Oprah, claim to fame, like, oh my gosh, if she promotes it and all this good stuff, right? You know how it started? It was really interesting. Weight Watchers, according to their website, started as a small group of friends. They met with a founder, and I can't pronounce, Jean Nadech, I believe, to just talk about weight loss struggles. And now I think there's over 1 million plus members, so forth. It's kind of crazy with 1 million plus members. I mean, you hear people like Oprah and Jennifer Hudson, Jessica Simpson, all these celebrities, and go look at like their course of their history. And it's no different than honestly, now over the years, hundreds of people that I've known have used it. It was never a solution. And I do believe now, and I can say in full transparency, I don't think it was meant to be a solution. Of course, it's backed by science. Of course, you got to believe it if it's backed by science in this point system. Two things that I noticed is one, people never seem to get off Weight Watchers. So it almost seems to be a crutch that people use. Oh, well, I'll just put the weight on the holidays and I'll just get back on my Weight Watchers in the new year. Hundreds of times. It's not a solution. The problem that I found, they've evolved over the years. And quite frankly, I think it's pretty disgraceful what they've done to their audience now that they are in bed with the weight loss company, Ozempic and Novo Nordisk, who created it. Of course, these are people that are realizing you can make more money promoting a medical weight loss alternative. So if you're looking at doing Weight Watchers, go look. They're in bed with them now. They've sold out to them, which makes me think over the years, was it really just a ploy to make money? Of course it was. Because then what did they do? They sold your Weight Watchers food. This is probably go back a decade and a half. And I remember looking into Weight Watchers. This point is like, you can have all the sugar-free crap. You could have all this garbage food, no nutrient value, but because it didn't have calories, because it was based on the point system, like, oh, I can eat this because it's fat-free and sugar-free, and it's all this garbage that isn't providing your body with nutrients. That was the first thing. The second thing, there was no fitness component to it at all. It was truly just about weight loss, not about health gain. It really was about how much weight can you lose, and let me do my point system and go check in. And they created a huge business. Super successful. Hey, nothing to knock it. The business model is awesome, right? You get people to lose some weight, you get them in a community, they get off it, they put the weight back on, and boom, like they never learn. They go back on it, and then they have some new thing that they're introducing, or they rebrand and they do it weight WW. They get some celebrities behind it, and then people are all in. They're sold out and believing anything that they see and read about it because it's science-based, this point system, right? Well, if you've been on it, and if this is rubbing you a little bit raw right now and you're getting a little upset, it's only because you probably were one of the victims from the company. I get the premise. You track your foods, keep in a point range, and you have it based on your needs and goals, right? I get it. And there's flexibility, focus on lifestyle rather than the weight. And it made it one of the most successful diets. That's bottom line, right? I get all those things. The problem is it was flawed. It was flawed from the beginning. It was making you stick to a plan that was not sustainable. Eating garbage food and not really working out and understanding those two go hand in hand were a big flaw. But because people were able to lose weight, if they kept the weight off or put it back on, didn't matter. They just kept going around. And of course, they had branding behind that. So now, of course, they have medical weight loss behind it. I believe they were working on, when I did a thing on Ozempic and I talked about Oprah has money, you think she has money in the company? Of course she does, right? And now that that selling weight loss drugs is inside of these companies now, they're just going to bypass the physicians and have their own in-house physicians that can prescribe this medical drug for you. So then WW or Weight Watchers, whatever you want to call it, waste of money is what I would call it, or a waste of time and waste of your life. By doing this stuff, it's something that you're better off realizing that if it sounds too good to be true, it is too good to be true. The bottom line with weight loss, let's just kind of hit here before this. You have to change your lifestyle. You have to look at the food you're eating, become a better consumer and a better advocate of food that you put in your mouth, knowing how much, what it is. Now we actually have to get even deeper into it to understand the foods out there that say they're healthy are not necessarily healthy. You got to look at where the chemicals, I mean, you almost have to have a PhD in understanding food to be really knowledgeable about eating healthy. I'm still learning now because things are ever changing. There's stuff that I don't want to even touch with a 10-foot pole that was considered healthy a couple of years ago. Same thing with exercise. Like, you have to realize that you're going to need to move more than you sit. If you sit on your ass, moving it more than you move, then you're not going to get in better shape. I don't care how much weight you lose. It's not going to make you healthier. Just because you lost 50 pounds doesn't mean you're healthier. It just means you lost 50 pounds. If you did it the wrong way, if you did it with medicine, if you did it with starving yourself, if you did it with some kind of crazy diet, again, it is going to come back and hit you in the face hard. All right, so let's move forward. Now, one of the other ones, the popular 60s macro diets, they came out pushing the veggies and grains and soy products. And I don't spend too much on here. You've seen that around. Chemical preservatives, eating foods that are free of chemicals and preservatives. To be honest with you, I think it's actually really valuable. The problem is the manufacturers that say that there's no chemicals, or they say something like that's grass-fed beef, realize you only have to grass-feed that beef the last 30 days. That's the FDA. Thank you, FDA, for screwing us all over. Let's move forward because I do believe that's good as far as like in the 60s about healthy foods, but in the 60s, the food was definitely created different than it was now. So let's look past that grapefruit diet in the 70s. You ever heard of that one? I'm sure. I was born in the 70s. So my parents, I do know for a fact, they've heard of the grapefruit diet. I'm sure they either one of them, one of my parents or friends they've had have tried the grapefruit, basically talking to eat a grapefruit with every meal. It has a special enzyme that burns fat fast. Well, you think everybody in their family is overweight would be no jumping on the grapefruit bandwagon, eating that every meal. If that still worked today, of course, nobody's doing it. Something else has replaced it. This is one of my favorite ones. And this one actually, I first learned about this one, and I know it evolved kind of like Weight Watchers, but this one blew me away. I had a couple of clients I remember back in probably early 2000, believe it or not. And I know, so it's been around since the mid 70s, first introduced in the 70s. And then it was something that just has been on the market and been on the market. And of course, nobody wants to say that they're doing this. And it's the infamous American cookie diet. The cookie diet, yes. There was this doctor, Siegel, I believe, Siegel in the 70s. The cookie diet required people to snack on low-calorie cookies throughout the day. According to US News, cookies reported made with a secret hunger controlling formula to keep your appetite at bay and your calorie count in check. And then this is what happened. The diet made a resurgence in 2009. And guess what? Celebrities, they paid off some celebrities, Kim Kardashian and Kelly Clarkson, giving it a try. Next thing you know, and that's when I had one of my clients on it in probably the early 2000s. What really is crazy about this and really just, it makes me lose all hope in pretty much I would say 90% of the medical community. I do believe in medicine. I believe in physicians. I believe for the most part that they have the person's best interest. But I know what it comes down to is dollars and cents again, money. And I know when liability insurance for like private doctors and even insurance like in medical, I remember in physical therapy where there weren't so many private physical therapy practices because insurance companies were starting to pull back. Right. And what happens is doctors weren't making as much money. So they had to do just like they're doing now with weight loss medicine. They're going to get paid off by these pharmaceutical companies, just like everybody else, to get kind of sold out. Well, I know there was a reputable doctor in Jacksonville where I lived, and some high-end clients that I worked with, personal training in their home at the time, their doctors were pushing them on this cookie diet, which is just crazy. And do you think it worked? Of course it didn't work. If that actually worked as a solution, everybody be eating cookies all the time, right? Sounds good. I like cookies. I like homemade cookies. I don't like the store-bought junk. I used to like the Oreos, and then just now I won't touch any of that stuff with a 10-foot pole. So that was one. And then, of course, when that went away in the 70s, Slim Fast. Do you remember Slim Fast? And you're probably thinking to yourself, oh, yeah, I did the Slim Fast shakes. That was launched in the 70s, started in the 90s. Slim Fast, I believe, is still on the market. I think if you go to any grocery store, still like there on the market, and you can get your hands on some Slim Fast. I know probably there's some old school people that think that Slim Fast is still something in there. That was a meal replacement program. And it was something as far as replacing 2 meals with the Slim Fast shakes. And from there, there was a number of different kinds of multi-level marketing companies that did kind of shakes. I even fell victim to one going all in and even selling at my gym one time. It was just a complete disaster. And then also in the late 70s, there was, late 70s, early 80s, I think. You heard of the cabbage soup diet. The cabbage soup diet came around. Like, if you just go back, you would almost laugh. You'd almost chuckle. If I told my kids who, didn't live in the 80s, they were born in 2000s, like I have a 20-year-old and 18-year-old, I said, yeah, people used to try to lose weight by eating cabbage soup. Like they thought that cabbage soup was something that, and I think it was in Mary Claire, I believe in maybe the magazines, Marie Claire. I think that was a magazine, like a popular magazine, like the Vogue and all that stuff. Cabbage soup diet was a low calorie intake, had no protein, and all the weight loss on this diet will be water and muscle, no body fat. That was kind of back when the personal trainers kind of got really started, like 70s, 80s. But I remember that was a big thing that trainers at that time. Now I was still young, but I remember, when I got into training and being around some of the older trainers out there, the cabbage soup diet was one of the favorites. It's just crazy. Of course, Beverly Hills, they made dieting. They came around and had the Beverly Hills diet. They had their own diet. And basically on there, it was nothing. It was just so crazy. It's about eating fruits. Fruits. You eat fruit for 10 days, 20 days, whatever it was. It's kind of crazy. And then start adding slowly things back in. Let's kind of move forward. You heard of Jenny Craig. That was in the mid 80s. They were prepared meals that came in. You guys, am I taking you down a memory road? Is it stinging you right now? If you're still struggling with weight and you did some of these in the past, can I just be frank with you? When are you going to learn? Like, when are you going to wake up and realize that none of this crap works? Well, Mark, what are you saying that I should do? Well, I'm not saying what you necessarily should do. I'm saying what you should probably not do. And what you should probably not do is believe in all this garbage that keeps getting pushed out. Now you're like, well, Mark, you market your stuff. Yes. But I'm not backed by a pharmaceutical company with billions of dollars, right? Or, famous celebrities who are making millions and millions of dollars off of people like you who continue to struggle, right? And I'm not saying you, but maybe you, if you are still struggling, if there's something that clicked and you're like, man, I want to learn more about that. I want to go down memory road. This is some of the crazy stuff that was out there. Now, if any of this had legs to stick, do you think it'd be like Weight Watchers still around? Because they just kept evolving it and kept changing it. Why would somebody have talked about lifestyle changes and point system and eating lower calories now selling you on weight loss medicine? It just does not make sense. It would be like me saying, oh, you know what, forget all the lifestyle changes and going to the gym and exercising and drinking your water and dealing with your stress and eating, whole fresh foods and looking for better ways to get away from the processed stuff. Just eat a cookie and you'll be all good. That would be like me kind of turning the coin and saying this different. Now, I've changed my opinion over the years and viewpoints, but it's only been in a direction more towards taking more accountability of your own actions and learning from your mistakes. If you've been on the diet path, it's time for you to learn from your mistakes. It's time to maybe get the help that you need. We're just one of good amount of coaches out there. Unfortunately, with every good amount of coaches out there, there's 1,000 more coaches out there that are terrible. And there'll be probably some coaches and trainers that try to sell you on this weight loss drug or on some kind of kooky diet as well. The secret formula is there is no secret formula. Let's kind of advance a little bit. The liquid diet in the 80s, you heard about that. OptiFast, Oprah Winfrey jumped on that bandwagon for a while. Now to me, I don't see her as the epitome of health and fitness. I wonder why. I think OptiFast came into the 90s and then the low fat in the 90s also. I remember specifically one brand, Nabisco, made Snackwells. And I remember it had all the sugar in it, but it had no fat. Everybody kind of like, as a dumb sheep as we are, we all said, oh, well, it doesn't have any fat and it has sugar in it, but it's good. You won't gain any fat. It was crazy. The reduced fat, all this kind of low fat, reduced fat, which you still see now. Low fat foods. Has that worked? No, because we're fatter than ever in our country, right? It just has not worked. That actually made people heavier because it actually caused people to consume more. What a slap in the face. And let's go into the 90s. The zone diet was Dr. Barry Sears, and that was to help reduce inflammation. I do believe in somewhat on that. It encourages people to eat a 40-30-30, which is basically 40% carbohydrates, 30% protein, and 30% fat. Again, it's just well balanced. That was something that was fairly decent. I actually think, again, that didn't carry legs because something else just replaced it, and there wasn't too many people making money off of that, right? Maybe the book and, a handful of people that went on it. And then it was like the late 90s, the blood type diet that has been debunked, found to deprive people of nutrients. That was one thing that came out. I think even now they're still saying like, oh, well, because of your blood type and all that stuff, this is what you need. Now, again, could that potentially help as far as on a performance level? I definitely agree with that to some extent. But for the average consumer, the average human that's not active, that's not fit, that's overstressed, I don't think it's going to be nearly as effective as just looking at what you're doing and trying to just make some improvements along the way. They had a Subway diet, of course, that swept the nation in the 2000. I can't remember. It was Jared, right? Jared, who like, hey, just eat Subways, again, you can go look into the ingredients in the Subways and that's all you need to know. I'm just going to move forward on that. But that was a big thing. Now everybody was trying to lose weight, was eating Subway diet. That was crazy, crazy, crazy. Of course, Atkins came into play in 2000 and that was essentially a high fat, low carb. You don't ever hear anybody talk about Atkins, right? Because why? Because the secondary version of the next level of that, keto, was something that came in. That was in the actually first concept for the Atkins was in the 60s. And then it kind of came back into the like early 2000s. They had a South Beach diet that was similar Actually, I guess that was similar to Atkins before keto. And that allowed, I think the Atkins were just a spinoff and allowed just a little bit of carbs. So you can have a little bit of carbs, just not too much carbs. And that was some cardiologists. Again, all this stuff, all this stuff. And I've been around a good amount of this. There was cleanses, the lemonade diet, all these cleanses and things that came out in the early 2000s as well. I want to kind of knock through some of these. The raw food diet, as far as getting the most from your produce. Now, I do believe in raw foods. The problem is these days, unlike back when like I grew up on a farm where like we had truly an organic farm that wasn't sprayed with pesticides, and that's hard to sustain, right? But I do know the problem with raw food is there's so much garbage. You think of the stuff that they're putting on like a peel, these forever chemicals and stuff. It's almost impossible to be truly healthy knowing everything that you're getting unless you're growing your own stuff on your own farm, which of course is now frowned upon as well, right? You see that going across. I wonder why. Again, it comes down to dollars and cents. But let's go into 2008. So we're going to go advance a little bit quicker now. Nutrisystems, that was a trendy meal program, right? To manage diabetes. You get the weight loss kits, you get the food sent to you, but go look into the food ingredients and Nutrisystems. Again, we got played. You got played. If you're a dieter, if you're trying to lose weight and you did this crap, the problem was, yes, is it a set amount of food? It's all processed garbage, packaged junk. Let's just go into that. There was a Special K diet rage in 2000. Now, you know anything about Kellogg's, you know what they put in their foods. Go look into the Kellogg's company. Go look into a Special K box. If you understand what's in the ingredient list, then you know what? You can go ahead and eat the Special K. If you understand, then you're probably the one that put the chemicals in there in the first place. Don't get me wrong. I've had the Special K. I didn't have it as a diet, but I've eaten the Special K bars and I've had stuff that's been processed. But I will tell you something you got to be extra careful with. Now on that, there was apple cider vinegar diet. We could just knock the baby food diet in 2010. There was, so many. Juicing came back around in the mid 2000s. Then, of course, we had things that were like paleo that came out in 2014. That was where followers to eat vegetables, meats, seafood, nuts. That was the paleo diet. You don't hear about that anymore. Like all these things, the Whole30, that was something that was popular. Now, look, if you've done that and you continued on that, awesome. But I guarantee you're probably 1 in 1,000. Honestly, none of these things make sense to me because why don't you just live healthy, active, go for real food, cook more, deal with your stress, get good night's sleep. That's going to be better off. That's what we teach our students. We just help them get unmessed up from all of the stuff that they've glazed over in their mind for so many years. There's all kinds of detoxes, things, keto came out into about 2018. That was one of the most popular diets. You hear anybody talk about keto anymore? Maybe some old time trainers. Keto is basically low carb, high fat, kind of a resurgence of the Atkins. It was actually treating epilepsy at the time. So if you have epilepsy, maybe that would be good. The potential can help you burn more fat, get into ketosis, all that kind of stuff. Mediterranean, which honestly, if there was one out of all of these, that would be the one that would resonate with me. And what I would think if you were to lean in on any of them, the Mediterranean diet, that's been really deemed the best since like 2019, but it's been around for a long, long time. And something that, again, the principles are straightforward. Mediterranean, you think of like the countries in the Mediterranean Sea, that basically consuming fruits, vegetables, fish, heart, healthy fats. Like it makes sense, rooted in ancient civilization. These are things that people have been eating for a long time, but you don't hear about it much because it's not something that's going to make companies money because you can just do this on your own. I would say that's 2019. And then now, of course, what I touched on was the medical weight loss injections. So you're taking injections. I will say one thing that's not related to diet, but did come and go. You don't hear about it, weight loss surgery. There's a reason why you don't hear about weight loss surgery anymore. It's because so many people have actually reverted back after the surgery, have had complications. My wife working in GI, I've seen so many patients with gastroparesis that have gastric leaking. They've had lots and lots of problems with that. Nobody's going to ever talk about those things, right? They're only going to talk about the one person that had success on that out of a billion. So again, it's going to be no different. The problem is right now, this is coming at you really hard. The weight loss injections are coming at you hard, just as all these things over the course of the last 100 years, however many of those diet trends you've lived through, none of them are going to match up to this. This is it. Your secret right here. Look at what you're eating. Look at the list. You should have some fruits and some vegetables, some carbohydrates, some proteins, and you should look for ways to get things less and less processed. If you can grow them, if you can find a farmer's market, it's one of the things we love moving here. We've actually found some local farmers, some local ranchers. We're going to do our best to know where our stuff is coming from and slowly move away from the things that are store-bought, right? That's something. And if you really want good longevity, if you want good, healthy, sustainable nutrition habits, you have to start being a better advocate. Now, with that, in addition, you do need to make sure you're drinking plenty of water. You need to make sure you're getting enough sleep. You do need to also be able to handle your stress. You need to be able to know where you're getting distracted from to say, oh, I don't have time to do all this stuff. I have too busy a life. Well, you can have too busy a life, but if it's taking years off your life, you might want to rethink that question. So ultimately, again, it is not nearly as hard as you think to become better, to become healthier, become more fit, but you're going to have to do your part at taking the initiative, take action, get the help you need, ask for help. Go find somebody who can help you with your fitness. Incorporate a coach and a coaching program into your life. Invest in yourself. I'm guaranteeing it's going to be way better than investing in all these kind of junky diets that are going to continue on for the life of the world. And hopefully it doesn't end your world if you continue to waste your time on them. Anyway, that's all I have for today's episode. And as far as my appreciation, I'm always appreciative. Thank you. I don't do any advertising. So I encourage you, if you like this, you found it valuable, subscribe. We'll be doing shows. Right now, I'm doing anywhere from 3 to 4 per week, trying to get out more. My goal is once I get, this is kind of interim office space, once I get my studio set up, which is in the process of being built out now, we are going to have episodes on a daily basis. And again, lots of different ones. To stay up to date, follow me on YouTube. You can follow me Spotify and also Apple Podcasts. And you can kind of look for me on social. And again, I also have, this is something not to necessarily promote, but just to let you guys know, we've built our own community. It's called My Brave Community. And right now we are welcoming new founding members to that. Before it was just open up to my inner circle, but right now we have our own community. It's off of social media. What a breath of fresh air that is. It's amazing. We're in the early infancy stages of that. But again, if you're listening to this, and I take it that you value what you've heard from me, and I appreciate it. We have a very new, brand new community. It's a free community for you to come in so you can be around like-minded people who are trying to become not only better today, but better today than they were yesterday. Anyway, take care. Have a blessed one. See you on the next show.